Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast presented by our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. Whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, Briar Greaves Insurance are the best people to work with. So visit briargreavesinsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That is 813-876-4166. It is a Thursday edition of the show, our last for the public audience. Then we have some for a private audience going on tomorrow. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But we're going to talk about the biggest concerns for the Bucs in 2025. We know injuries are always a factor in any type of situation, but what else could halt these Buccaneers from achieving their ultimate goal of winning another Super Bowl? We're going to break all of that down on today's show and answer questions and comments from you, the Pewter people, everybody in the comments. Of course, Super Chats get to cut the line. But let's get to it. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me, my co-host on Thursday shows, Adam Slavon. Hello, Sly. How we doing?
Matt, we're doing great. Really happy to be on discussing some of the Bucs' biggest concerns heading into the season. Because you look at last year, hey, the Bucs were a 10-win team. They made the playoffs, but there were still a few factors that held them back. Yeah. Will those same factors hold the team back? And is there anything else to really get into? So happy to be on.
Yeah, and there's certainly way more positive with the Buccaneers than the negative side of things. So this is more of like a worst case scenario type of situation. And we can identify some positive things for the Bucs as well. We're not trying to be negative going into a Memorial Day weekend and everything like that. We do have to, as I mentioned, negative. There was some really unfortunate news last night, some somber news about didn't directly impact the Bucs, but certainly impacted the NFL community with the passing of Colts owner Jim Irsay. That was reported last night. Actually, he passed away in his sleep at the age of 65, and really just surprising and shocking news. I mean, at 65 years old, he wasn't that old compared to what we think of like the typical lifespan. And
yeah,
a guy that had been in the news a lot for good and bad reasons. Don't know him personally, but seemed like he was pretty beloved by Colts fans and really ahead of the curve in a lot of ways too. Like he was very outspoken when a lot of owners are typically kind of behind the scenes type of stuff. He had to cut Peyton Manning. I mean, he brought Peyton Manning in, but he also had to make a tough decision of letting go of Peyton Manning. But he was a real opportunistic guy. I believe the Colts have the 8th most wins since Jim Irsay took over as the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, and just seemed like a really cool dude. So very, very sad to see, and RIP to him and his family.
Yeah, it was sad to see because Irsay, he was known to be kind of that eccentric team owner, like always talking on social media, giving press conferences. He was in the locker room dancing last season.
Yeah.
And he always took care of his players. I mean, you look at his X account and some of the posts that he had, he'd always wish happy birthday to former players. And I think he got Edgar and James, the running back, like a Rolls Royce or something. Yeah. And was like cruising down the street with them, like just really fun. He loved the players. He loved the city of Indianapolis. And it was so sad to see because you don't see a lot of team owners as passionate about the game. They see it as maybe a business investment. I have this $8 billion team. No, he loved the Colts. And you wish as a fan of a team that you had an owner like Irsay.
Yeah, passion's the right word because he wanted to win as much as the fans want to win. And like some owners, they view owning a team as a business. I don't think the Glazers are like that. The Glazers really want the Bucs to win. And you don't have to be in front of the camera being all rah-rah the way that like Mark Cuban was with the Dallas Mavericks and stuff like that. But you could really feel it and sense it with Jim Irsay. And I remember reading up a story yesterday after all of the news that said that like he worked like every job in the Colts organization to get an understanding of like where the janitor is coming from and the everyone that does laundry and all of that stuff.
He would give them all a card with like $100.
Yeah, that was the next thing was a $100 bill. So RIP to Jim Irsay, condolences to his family as well. I know Bruce Arians, who of course is a huge part of the Bucs family, winning a Super Bowl with them. He also worked for the Colts for quite a while, was on the Pat McAfee show talking about Jim Irsay. So definitely would recommend checking that out if you want to talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, once again, RIP to Jim Irsay. Felt we should address that on today's show. It was big news in the NFL. But back to the Bucs conversation, Adam. It's been quite a week. Simeon Rice got announced that he's going into the Hall of Fame on Monday. We spoke to a lot of offensive coaches on Tuesday, and now we're kind of waiting a little bit for Memorial Day weekend, and then OTAs is coming up next week. So
Yeah.
a little bit of slightly downtime, but a little bit of more open-ended conversation, which is why we want to talk about things that could go right and things that may go wrong for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season. And let me start with this before we get into specific topics. Let's just take injuries out of it.
Yeah.
This team, what could their best be and what could their worst be? Let's just say everyone's mostly healthy. Maybe like a star player misses a time or two. But what's the ceiling for them and what's worst case scenario for Tampa Bay?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say the ceiling for the team, you're looking at a 12 or 13 win team, in my opinion. If the issues with some of the game management decisions from last year are fixed with Zach Beastline, that'll help Todd Bowles out in a big way. If you see the defense improve while the offense stays the same, if they're a top 5 scoring offense and the defense can kind of just be middle of the pack, I think you're looking at a 12 or 13 win team, Matt. And the floor, let's say that things don't go according to plan. Maybe the offense regresses a little bit. The defense stays the same as it was last year. I still think in the NFC South, you have an 8 or 9 win team at the worst.
Yeah, I could see an 8-win NFC South team getting in. And I do think 8 or 7 wins is the floor for Tampa Bay. Because again, it goes back into Seattle, San Fran, New England, Arizona. These are fringe teams that could be good, but could be pretty bad. As far as their ceiling, I mean, if everything goes right, the Bucs can win 14 games this season and go 14-3. I know that's high, but I believe in the talent on this team. Now, Josh Broussard is going to be very important with that, the new offensive coordinator. But if everything goes right and everything clicks, I think 14 wins is very attainable. Now, if certain things regress and certain things don't go the proper way for the Bucs, and we'll talk about that in just a second, I think you can cut those 14 wins in half and say it would be 7 wins. So my next question, we actually got this from, I believe it was Mark Fisher yesterday on a super chat. So I answered this on yesterday's show, but I would love your opinion on this as well. If the Bucs don't, let's just say they do what they did 2 seasons ago when they lost in the second round to Detroit. If the Bucs get to that second round again and they don't go any further, does Todd Bowles fall into a situation that Tony Dungy fell into back in the day where it's all right, he's built a good team, but can only go this far and we need somebody else to take them to the Super Bowl? Is it that time just yet if the Bucs only get to the second round?
You're teetering quite the line there with
I know.
Todd Bowles, because over the past few years, I mean, you've seen the Bucs improve every single year in terms of the win-loss record. You saw them in 2023, Baker's first year. They made it to the divisional. So, you could see the progress when it comes to Todd Bowles leading the team. But at the end of the day, it's about rings and the legacy. Yeah. And it's hard because the Bucs, the past 5 seasons, they made the playoffs. They're consistent. They're not down in the doldrums like they were in the 2000s when they weren't making the playoffs. They're a competitive team, but at the same time, the Super Bowl window is only going to be open for so long. So it's a great question because Todd Bowles is also 60, 61 himself. So you're wondering, how long will he coach? And if you get a guy that's younger, in his early 40s, bright offensive mind, could he get him over the hump? It'd be taking a risk, but I think you almost have to at that point.
Yeah, I think 2 seasons from now will truly give an answer, because if Bowles goes second round 2 years in a row, well, then again, there'll be so many different pieces. Mike Evans might not be here. Who knows who's on defense? What's up with Vita Vea and things like that? It might be time to just get a new voice in there and take this team over the hump. But if they go NFC Championship game this upcoming season,
I don't think you do it.
And then what if they go NFC Championship game, first round exit in the next 2 years? That's a really tough situation, because it's you see what Todd Bowles can do and bring this team to new heights, but then also still haven't seen the Super Bowl and what would now be like 7 years coaching the team. It's a really slippery slope.
It really is, and it's something to navigate definitely going forward. But you kind of saw the Bucs take a step like supporting Bowles this past offseason, choosing
Yes.
not to pick Liam Cohen. Like they believe in Bowles enough that he can get him over the hump. But at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. The NFL is a business. You need to have those results. So Todd Bowles really needs to start showing them this season or next season. Otherwise, he's not going to really have that long-term future.
Right, and he said that he doesn't really want to coach forever too. So
Yeah.
not like the clock is ticking just yet, but you can kind of see the clock in the near distance, all at the same time. If the Bucs aren't successful, it's not just going to be Todd Bowles. It's going to come from the players as well. And you and I had a little conversation before the show as well, kind of mapping out where we think some of the biggest, potholes are with this team this year. And I think a lot of this stems with the inside linebacker position. We know what Lavonte David means to this team, how important he is, but they also can't afford too much regression of Lavonte David, especially depending on what they get from the rest of the inside linebacker room.
Yeah. So the discussion we had before the show, we started, our first point was the inside linebackers. The first comment that we've gotten today was the inside linebackers. And you look at it last year, that was the biggest team need, was addressing inside linebacker. Lavonte David, he's now 35 years old. How is he going to hold up? You started to see last season, he took a step back a little bit in pass coverage. He was still really good, saved his best for last in the playoff game against the Commanders, but he's nearing an age where inside linebackers, they're not that successful. You saw Derek Brooks at the end of his career kind of fell off his last season. If Lavonte David does that, and he's your surefire guy, what is the other position going to look like? Because you have Servassier Dennis. Is he going to stay healthy for a 17-game season? He had a hamstring injury his rookie year, then the shoulder injury last year, just as he was starting to come along. And then you'd be relying on two 30-year-old guys, in Anthony Walker Jr. and Deion Jones. They had a track record beforehand of really good seasons, but you're not paying for the track record or the resume. You need to see that in 2025. And I have my doubts if either of them will be a full-time starter this year. So I think you look at inside linebacker, there's a ton of concern there because what are you expecting? John Bullock to maybe earn some snaps and compete? It's hard to see.
Yeah, he's the one like shining light of, well, maybe he's a potential, especially with the news last night, because there was some conversation, some talk about, well, if things aren't working out at inside linebacker, like they could just bring JJ Russell back and you at least where you stand with JJ Russell and what he brings to the team. But he actually signed with the Arizona Cardinals yesterday on a 1-year contract. So they will see JJ Russell, just not in Bucs red and pewter. They will see him at Raymond James Stadium if he's still on the team when the Cardinals come to town week 13th. I believe that's November 30th. Yeah. It's also when they're inducting Simeon Rice into the Hall of Fame. Steven Stansfield, that's what we were talking about with the comment too, said it's pretty obvious that inside linebacker outside of David and Dennis, Anthony Walker is a depth piece, and Deion Jones and David both in their 30s. They're a lock of depth, veteran depth, so Light should make a call too. Before the draft and everything, I felt like everybody else, like they need to address linebacker one way or another. But now we'll see what happens with Servassier Dennis. But now that everything else is in place on the defense for the Bucs, I'm kind of fine with them like putting all of their resources next offseason into getting that next starting inside linebacker. A lot is going to be on the shoulders of Servassier Dennis and, of course, Lavonte David as well. But oddly enough, I feel better about Anthony Walker than I do Deion Jones. We said before, Deion Jones is coming back. Deion Jones is coming back. They signed him in December. It's not like this dude has been around the Bucs for a long time. He's mostly been terrorizing the Bucs with the Atlanta Falcons, dropping interceptions for the Bucs. And I know they got the stop there in the end zone on 4th and goal anyway. But expecting Deion Jones to be around for 17 games, I think, is a bit of a stretch. And you mentioned before the whole Derek Brooks thing of like he just kind of fell off a cliff and then that was all she wrote.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that with Lavonte David. But I do have a bad feeling that there's going to be a couple of times where Lavonte is is really showing his age. Now, maybe he never gets to the Derek Brooks type of situation because, I mean, let's just face it, it's years later, modern technology, new ways of working out and dieting and all these things probably will help Lavonte David and his longevity in the NFL more than it would have helped, Derek Brooks or, other guys back in the day. But to me, it's all about if Lavonte can't save the day, and it's kind of the same thing with his other position we'll talk about soon, but if Lavonte isn't the guy, you have a lot of questions about Servassier. There's like no other way to turn. Like, sure, maybe you can find a free agent, but you're clinging on for dear life for Lavonte David because there's not much else.
Yeah, and I think that points to the point that you made that the Bucs are really focusing on inside linebacker, you would think, going into next year and allocated resources elsewhere this past offseason because Lavonte David, he's been holding in there. He's been going strong, hard in the paint, like 122 tackles last year, 5.5 sacks.
It's absurd.
Yeah. And like you see that production from a 34-year-old inside linebacker, it jumps off the page. But again, it's how long can he do it for? And it's not 2008 when Derek Brooks was playing. It's 2025. So the recovery process, if Lavonte, his heart's still in it, he's still going to be doing good. But it's hard putting all your eggs in the Lavonte David basket when nothing else really looks like it's going to hatch. I mean, unless Servassier, he really stays healthy and he's that coverage linebacker that can fill in. I am higher on Anthony Walker than Deion Jones, just based on Walker and David. They've been working out together. They're friends.
Like that.
They have that chemistry. That makes sense. But like you mentioned, Deion Jones, he came along, had a couple good snaps, but you can't rely on him. His best days were with the Atlanta Falcons, not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It feels like every other position that the Bucs have, specifically on defense, but really the whole team, you can point to like the incumbent, the up and coming guy. Certainly at corner they did it this year with Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish. The defensive line with Elijah Roberts, friend of the program. Even safety like Tyke Smith's only in his second year. Inside linebackers, that one spot where it's like, all right, well, Servassier, he's been here for a while, but he also hasn't like really played that much. And we're looking at Servassier attempting to be a first-year starter in year 3. So there's going to be some growing pains with that. And as much as Lavonte David has been a superhero for this team, they were really missing their Superman last year. He did play in 9 games, but Antoine Winfield Jr., to me, is the Superman of this defense. Even with Batman being my favorite superhero, this team, I think, saw its biggest downgrade with just not having the presence of Antoine Winfield Jr. And sure, there's injuries all over at corner. There was injuries at safety. Not all of the guys that you wanted playing had to play just based on necessity. But really my question is, what if Antoine Winfield Jr. does not regain his all-pro form? The guy that just dominated everywhere in 2023 and still had his moments in 2024 with a scoop and score against the Saints. You have Tyke Smith back moving to starting at strong safety next to Antoine Winfield Jr. But to me, to expect him to have the exact same season as he did as an all-pro in 2023 is far-fetched. But you still need an elite-level Antoine Winfield Jr. if you want to make a championship game.
Yeah, fully agree. Antoine Winfield Jr., he's really the X factor of the Bucs defense going into the season. But we kind of had the discussion to begin this show of the ceiling and floor of the Bucs team. I think last year you saw the floor of Antoine Winfield Jr., and it was still a player who flashed, who could make big plays. He was just limited by injury. So you would think that a healthier version, you really see him get back to playing near the 2023 level. I think it's going to be impossible for him to replicate that because he was making absurd plays every single week, whether getting sacks, forced fumbles. I mean, he did it all. But to really see the Tampa Bay defense get better this year, you need to see Antoine Winfield Jr. at least getting close to that. You can't have what he was last year because that just hurts the secondary in so many different ways.
Yeah, it really does. And I think we keep forgetting that too. And I get it. Like, we live in a world where it's you go on your phone and you instantly see something, and that becomes a narrative and things like that. But I think we forget how much time that Antoine Winfield Jr. missed last year and how much that really hurt the team. And it wasn't just Antoine. It was Jordan Whitehead getting injured. Christian Izien got injured just at the safety position later on. So Now Tyke Smith moves over into strong safety next to Antoine Winfield Jr. And to me, this is like watching a Pro Bowl or an All-Star game, because I think IQ-wise, Tyke Smith going into his second season is right there, if not above where Antoine Winfield Jr. was going into his second year. But then you listen to the coaches, like Nick Rapone last week wasn't all high and mighty on Tyke
Yeah.
Smith. And, Todd Bowles and Jason Light going back to the NFL annual meeting in Boca, they didn't seem as high on Tyke Smith as I think a lot of us are. So where are your concerns, or where's your setting right now with Tyke Smith?
So with Tyke Smith, I do think like his football intelligence is off the charts. I mean, that's why the Bucs decided to draft him last year and plug and play him day one as a starter. So I think that he's gonna have a starting role this year. But I wonder, Matt, if it's going to be fully at safety, or because they also sounded high on Jacob Parrish playing outside corner, maybe not fully at nickel, and maybe Benjamin Morrison, he works into the mix at nickel. There's so many moving parts in the secondary that I don't think you can pencil Tyke in at safety just yet, because you have to see how everything else unfolds. And you still have Christian Izien. He's forgotten about. Maybe he plays safety. Tyke's at nickel. I think you're going to see a lot more rotation than maybe you'd expect. But with Tyke Smith, he battled injuries himself last year, but when he was on the field, he was the best playmaker on defense. So I think that will play. He'll get better in his second year. He's not going to hit that rookie wall, and you're going to see a plus starter out there. But it does lead to the next question, Matt. Where are the interceptions going to come from? Because you look at it, Antoine Winfield Jr. had his career high 3 interceptions in 2023. Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum, and Tyke Smith, their career high is 2. So even if all those guys hit their career high by 1 interception, you're sitting at 13. Like, do you expect that? Like, where are these interceptions going to come from? Because Todd Bowles, he wants ball hawks.
Yeah. So I'm very intrigued by the idea, and you just brought it up. We talked about it on the show before. The idea of, yes, you have your main starters, your base starters, but guys moving in different spots. Where like maybe one week Benjamin Morrison is on the outside, but then Jacob Parrish is, depending on who the overall, wide receiver that they're covering is. I mean, you could say that at a couple of different positions. To go back to Tyke Smith, tied for the team lead in interceptions, tied for the team lead in forced fumbles. It was 2, not a ton in either aspect. So where the interceptions going to come from, I also think that it's not going to come directly. The ball is not going to go into the hands of these guys, but I think it's going to come from a better pass rush, from the addition of Hassan Reddick, from David Walker coming into the mix as well. Strengthening that unit also strengthens the overall secondary for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think Benjamin Morrison eventually is going to be starting for this team. He can get a few. Jacob Parrish, we've already seen him record a couple of interceptions at Bucs rookie minicamp. Now you got to prove it in the game. It's one thing at practice against guys that aren't even going to be on the team. But I think this rookie class, those 2 corners specifically, have a chance. I think Zion McCollum is more motivated than ever, especially after coming on the Pewter Report podcast once again and saying he's going to have 6 or 7 interceptions, and it's a contract year as well. Plus, more Winfield, I think, leads to more interceptions too. So it's a combination of just the pass rush being better, having your best players on the field for more often, bringing in guys that know how to take the ball away with the rookies in Morrison and Parrish. And I also think we have to remember the new game plan that we presume is going to happen with Todd Bowles calling up, maybe a little bit more man-to-man or a little bit more tighter of coverage up at the line of scrimmage, disguising coverages as well, confusing quarterbacks in different ways than just your aggressive blitzes. So I don't know if it's going to be one guy getting like 6 interceptions, as much as we all want that for Zion McCollum. But with the new influx of talent pushing the rest of the talent, I think you're going to see maybe even double of what they did last season.
Yeah, I would say so. And like, by the way you're describing it, it almost sounds like instead of having a dominant closer, I know you're a Mets fan, so Edwin Diaz, it's going to be more of like a closer by committee approach in terms of getting interceptions. Like maybe there's not a guy that gets 5 or 6. Let's say 4 guys get 3 interceptions, or 5 guys get 2. I mean, I think that there's enough talent in the secondary where you're going to see that happen, but it's going to come to will Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish, like, they shined in rookie minicamp. Are they going to shine in September when they're facing NFL quarterbacks that have been there and done that? Wide receivers that will be getting by them. I mean, they'll have to adjust, and you're kind of hoping they hit the ground running like Tyke Smith did last year.
If you recall, during the weekend of the draft, so Emeka Egbuka got drafted in the first round on the first day. We had a press conference with him and Todd Bowles and Jason Light and everybody that second day. And somebody had asked Todd Bowles, like, how did Josh Grizzard feel about the pick? And Bowles, in a very sarcastic way, was like, oh, he's doing backflips right now. If Todd Bowles can get 4 players in the secondary to get 3 interceptions, he's going to be doing backflips.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. The committee approach, and somebody in the comments said it too. I'm sorry, I saw it at one point. Richard Taroka said the days of 8 to 10 interceptions for a player are long gone. Because it's a weird spot, right? You don't want to be targeted too much because that means you're leaving guys open. But you also want the opportunity to take the ball away. So you might only get like 5 opportunities in a month or whatever the case may be. So it's a little bit of a fluctuating thing. That was always the argument with like Darrelle Revis and Richard Sherman. Yeah. It's like, well, Revis goes across the field. Sherman doesn't get too many opportunities, but that's because he's covering well. And, that's a conversation for another day. But I think, you can't just rely on, all right, Antoine, get 7 interceptions. That's just not really heard of anymore. There was a Trevon Diggs a couple of years ago with the Cowboys. But then you get to a situation where it's like, you're almost playing bad coverage on purpose to try to make up ground for it. And we saw with Diggs, he would make big plays, but then also get smoked on a big down the field play trying to jump the route. So it's it's kind of one of those beauties in the eyes of the beholder. It's like, you got 8 interceptions, but you also allowed 10 touchdowns. Like, what kind of lens are you looking through? What works best? And I do know what does work best when it comes to insurance is Briar Greaves Insurance. If you're a longtime podcast listener, you probably remember the late, great Mark Cook talking about Briar Greaves Insurance. Pewter reports Scott Reynolds has been a Briar Greaves customer for years, and there simply is not a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. So visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com to see for yourself. Briar Greaves Insurance is family-owned, and their main goal is helping people. They want to help people find the right insurance policy for you and your family. Whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Briar Greaves and find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. The days of waiting on hold to speak with an insurance representative that you don't even know are over. With Briar Greaves Insurance, you'll have a relationship with your agent who can answer your questions and advise you on the best policies. As 2 recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a cost to living in paradise. Briar Greaves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. Visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com today. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, or call their office today at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166, and tell them that Pewter Report sent you. Shout out to our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. We have a super chat to get to as well. Thank you to Bucs Basement for this $4.99 super chat. Again, we'll get to some comments, but if you super chat us, you get to cut the line. Bucs Basement says, biggest concern, ? Todd Bowles' time management does not improve, and his awful coaching decisions continues to cost the Bucs games. Okay. I understand the frustration, and you're certainly right about lack of personnel usage or deciding whether to put in a new starter or not. Yeah. And the time management has been a gigantic flaw in the game of Todd Bowles, and also, of course, going for 2 against the Chiefs instead of playing for overtime. With all of that said, now, again, he's talking the talk. He's got to walk the walk as well. But everything that Todd Bowles has been talking about in this offseason, and his actions as well, as you mentioned before, Adam, hiring Zach Beastline to be that game management coordinator, everything he is saying, if he can back it up as well, and I believe he can back it up because he's not just saying like, we're going to get 30 interceptions and 40 sacks, we're going to be great. When he says, I have a plan, I watched the tape and I said, oh my goodness, we're not doing this right. We have to do that instead. And they said, I want ball hawks, damn it. And they went out and they got him ball hawks. I think for the first time in 2 or 3 seasons, Todd Bowles legitimately feels like he has all of the right personnel to go out and, not just have a great game like he did calling the Super Bowl when they won in 2020, or that game against the Eagles in the playoffs at Raymond James Stadium 2 seasons ago. I think Todd Bowles has the formula and the self-scouting to get this team in a much better position. And whether that's hiring a new coach to say, hey, coach, maybe you should call a timeout in the first quarter, or hey, coach, maybe you should go for 2. He's trying to get better in several different ways, and he's got to prove it, but I think he's on the right path.
I think so too. And you mentioned the word formula, and it's like, I don't know if Todd Bowles has a Krabby Patty formula or he has missile codes or something, because at the NFL owners meeting, he mentioned that he had that eureka moment when it came to defensive game planning. And when it comes to like game management, I think the addition of Beastline will help, but you kind of see Bowles carry this quiet confidence about him. So when he's really confident about something, you kind of listen, because you're like, okay, Todd Bowles, he really means that. Like, the defense is going to look different this year. And I think you can look at the additions at outside linebacker, the additions in the secondary. It's really going to allow him to get in his bag more. And last year, with so many personnel issues on the injury side, you saw the defense struggle. But I think, Matt, as you mentioned, with the pass rush, that getting better will complement the secondary. And if both of those are in sync, I think you'll have a better defense. If you have a better defense, I think there'll be some better game management decisions, especially having somebody by his side. I think all these things kind of correlate and go together. But again, when you look at it, and there are some concerns there, like we mentioned, inside linebacker, the takeaways, where will they come from? But I think if you see better players and a higher floor, the team's going to have a higher floor, and that's going to kind of negate some of the issues that have kind of held them back in recent years.
What are your thoughts about the pass rush right now for the Buccaneers? Some proven commodities, some guys that really need to pick up the slack. What do you think about this group going into the season?
I'm more optimistic on it, I think, like compared to going into last year, because Hassan Reddick, he has a track record of production. He had the 1 sack last year with the Jets, but you're kind of expecting him, even if he doesn't get back to double digits, maybe 8 sacks. I think you would take that. Yaya Diaby, another year to develop, kind of refine his pass rush moves. He could get to double digits too. And then you kind of look at the backups. David Walker, man. David Walker lit it up in rookie minicamp. Really excited to see him. Probably one of the players I'm most excited to see at mandatory minicamp and training camp, because he was electric. And the way he can get around those tackles, man, he might surprise some people. And then Chris Braswell, I know Josh just did a story, put it in the chat a couple minutes ago, but you kind of want to see more out of him. And I think he came along pretty strong last year. So I'm pretty optimistic that they won't have just 12 sacks. That the secondary won't just have 7 interceptions. And I think the outside linebackers maybe could double that.
Yeah, it was appalling seeing that there was so little amount of sacks by Bucs outside linebackers last year. Like, don't get me wrong. You love seeing Kalijah Kancey lead the team in sacks. You love it when
Vita Vea
did it 2 seasons ago. But when your best outside linebacker is 4th on the team in sacks, that's kind of an issue. Now, who's the best outside linebacker this year? Is it Yaya? Is it Hassan Reddick? That remains to be seen. You could argue it one way or another. But I just don't foresee a situation where Reddick is the Jets' edge rusher all over again. Yaya doesn't improve from his 7.5 sacks as a rookie 2 seasons ago. Braswell never comes to fruition as a 2nd-round pick. And David Walker is, I guess you can't say a bust if he's a 4th-round pick, but David Walker doesn't amount to anything. So then you're just kind of back into a situation of Yaya and
Anthony Nelson.
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm completely done with Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts. If they want to make the practice squad, awesome. All the better for them. But they've been here long enough now where I feel like the Bucs know what they have in those 2 players specifically. But if 2 of those things hit, say it's Hassan Reddick going back to his double-digit sack form and David Walker's a sensation, or Chris Braswell is the guy that they believed him to be when they drafted him a year ago, well, then this outside linebacker room is in such a better spot. The problem is going to be the longevity of it, because if it's Braswell and Walker, then hey, you're A-okay. You're good to go.
Yeah,
These are some
you got
young
the
players that are going to
youngins.
be around for a while. I guess, yeah. Like, what would you rather see? Hassan Reddick have a 15-sack season, or Braswell and Walker at least show the signs that they could be future starters on this team?
Yeah, you'd want to see the latter, right? You want to see the young guys step up, and because you have them locked in. If Hassan Reddick has a 15 sack season on the open market, he's going to command north of $20 million. You want to pay a 30-something-year-old pass rusher that kind of money when you're a young team up and coming. You have guys in the pipeline kind of waiting. It's tricky. I mean, you want to see Hassan do well, but
Yeah.
you also want to see the young guys shine too.
A couple comments. Sean Wallace says, everybody just forgot about Braswell. I think it's his turn, and he's going to make the most of it. Follows that up with, this pass rush is going to be tremendous rotation. I have very high hopes for several players. And Mobbin for Christ says, Jose has some juice. I don't know if we ever tried developing him. I could be wrong, though. Well, Jose Ramirez had that big game in the preseason against the
3
Jaguars.
sacks.
He had 3 sacks, but he's never lined up on defense in a regular season game. I don't know what more else you have to do with a hat trick game of sacks to not even get into the lineup. And Marquise Watts was the guy that the Bucs take over him. So I don't know if it's a size thing. I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere. I just don't really see it with the Bucs.
Yeah, you would have saw it last year. If none of the outside linebackers could get sacks, and you have a guy waiting in the wings who had 3 sacks in a preseason game, you probably would have put him out there more than you did, unless there was some concern. And for Ramirez and Watts, they've been in the mix for a couple of years now, but it's like sink or swim, and they're kind of just chilling on the little lifesaver, they're not going anywhere. So.
All right, let's talk about the offensive side of the football, Adam. To you, what is the biggest concern that could hold the Bucs back in 2025?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern starts with how quickly will the offense get on the same page and really start firing? Because under Dave Canales in 2023, the first 4 games, they averaged 21 points. Under Liam Cohen last year, the first 4 games, they averaged 24. And you kind of need the offense to almost be better than that, because the 6 losses not including the Broncos loss last year, because they only put up 7, and the other 6 losses, the Bucs averaged 25.83 points a game. So they were putting up points, but it was the defense. They had to mask its problems every single week. So you need the offense this year to really come out of the gate firing, because you can't expect the defense to be one of the best in the league, but you can expect the offense to be, and the offense really needs to be that if they're going to hit their ceiling. So when I look at Josh Grizzard, first-time play caller, will he be able to get everything in sync, make those adjustments? Because he's going to have to. And being a Yale grad, he's going to need to be taking a lot of notes, drawing up a lot of plays, and doing a lot of things differently to really get there.
I thought it was really cool talking to Josh Grizzard the other day, and I'd asked him about, how do you build on this rushing attack that was top 5 in the league, and you have a breakout star, Bucky Irving, and the entire offensive line is back? And pretty much what he said, and he had a message to the whole team about who gives a damn about last year's numbers? We could still get better in those numbers. So he's not coming in being like, hey, we're good here, let's just keep it moving. No, he's still hungry. He wants more from this unit. And I still think you can get more from this unit. I don't know if they're going to be when Peyton Manning first went to the Broncos and threw, what was it, 65 touchdown passes? Yeah, whatever it was. But, this team should push to be the number 1 offense this year. There's no reason why they cannot achieve that with Baker and Mike and Bucky Irving and all these guys. But it was really cool when Grizzard was like, yeah, we find stuff from all over. Let's remember, yes, he came from the Dolphins. Yes, he came from Mike McDaniel. But he was a part of 3 or 4 different coaching staffs in Miami. And then also learned under Liam Cohen last year. I love that he was like, I was looking at tape of Tez Johnson and Emeka Ibuka, and we found 4 or 5 plays just watching the tape of them that we feel we can use in our running game, or we can use in our passing game. He mentioned having international coaches out a couple of weeks ago, and they came up with some ideas that Grizzard had never even heard of or never even thought of. So
Hmm.
you hear it all the time, right? With guys like Andy Reid, who certainly is well accomplished in the NFL. And, there's that famous story of the janitor came up with a play and Andy was like, all right, like, let's hear it. And I think they ended up running it
Yeah,
or,
they did.
yeah,
I
they
think I
ended
remember
up
hearing
running it
that.
and everything like that. And just Grizzard being open to new ideas, I think will help unlock a new level for this Buccaneers offense, whether it's Baker, whether it's Bucky Irving, whatever the case may be. What I really want to know with Josh Grizzard, and it's the same question I had with Dave Canales, I guess I had it with Liam Cohen too, is how does he respond to the first time that there is some adversity?
Mm.
Like, because we're all coming in thinking this should be a team that gets hovering around 30 points per game. We saw the proof is in the pudding. They have all the talent there. There's only one guy missing. So if Grizzard doesn't live up to the billing, then maybe he's the issue. If it's like the first game and the Bucs only have 10 points at halftime, I think people are going to be like, "Oh, what's going on? Like the offense, they're not what they used to be." I want to see how Grizzard deals with the pressure, because there's some pressure with
Yeah.
his role specifically coming into a group that had so much success the year before. So how does he deal with the pressure, the expectations of him? Because that everybody else was able to deliver. Now it's just on him, Josh Grizzard, to go and get that job done.
I do want to say, Matt, you mentioned like Peyton Manning in that Broncos offense. Grizzard has one connection to
Adam
Adam
Gase.
Gase, being on the Dolphins. But I think being under all those different coaching staffs, learning like under Gase, under Brian Flores, McDaniel, like you kind of will see more innovation. And I think being a first-time play caller, he's going to rely more on his assistants. And I mean, we spoke to him on Tuesday. Those are a lot of plus position coaches to have in the room, like helping him, whether it's the offensive line, you have Carberry and Pacucci, like
Yeah.
those guys will be assisting him in the run game. He's a smart guy. He's a young guy. So you'll kind of see him drawing more plays that probably will be different from other offenses in football. So I think that kind of gives you reason for hope. But you also mentioned the adjustment. Like Dave Canales' first game against the Vikings, it was a struggle bus in the
It
first half. You
was,
saw
yeah.
Liam Cohen, and even in his year, he had that Broncos game early on in the season. They only put up 7 points. You're going to see a game more than likely where the Bucs offense is struggling. But how will he respond? I think that will set the tone for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The struggle will come somewhere, but it's how you overcome it, how you adjust to it. Dave Canales and Liam Cohen were, and we'll see with Josh Grizzard. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Bucs wide receivers tomorrow on the Pewter Insider. That is for Pewter Platinum and Premier members, and that topic will be Bucs wide receiver corps is the envy of the NFL. It was already a pretty damn good duo. Then in the last 2 years, they drafted Jalen McMillan, who went on to have 8 touchdowns. This year, they spent their first-round pick on Emeka Egbuka and also got a great bargain of a deal with 7th-round pick Tez Johnson. We'll see what type of impact he could have in his rookie year, along with Egbuka and, of course, everybody else that I just mentioned. So that's going to be on the Pewter Insider tomorrow at 1:30. As for Pewter Platinum and Premier members, we appreciate all of your support and looking forward to doing that show. Also, some more scheduling things for everybody. With Memorial Day weekend coming up, there will be no show on Monday. So take that time to, of course, remember all of those that fought for their lives to defend our country and everything, and all of our veterans and everybody out there right now. So Monday, no show. Tuesday, it will be an OTA practice. So we will recap everything from OTAs. And then next Wednesday, the 28th, Jason Light returns to the show. We had him on last year. He's been on a couple of times now, but we're going to get his thoughts on the roster, this year's draft class, overall things going on in the NFL, and with your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So very excited to have Jason Light on Wednesday's show. So again, reminder for everybody, Pewter Insider Friday, no show on Monday because of Memorial Day, and then show Tuesday and Wednesday, with Wednesday being Jason Light. And since we're talking about our Pewter Platinum and Premier members, let's give a special thank you and a shout out to our Platinum members: Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, He's 0813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zach Brannigan, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor Four Reels, Zach Jarvis, Kevin Thomas, and Mario Thomas. Thank you all so much
Thank
for your
you.
support and being Pewter Platinum members. And we have the Pewter Insider tomorrow at 1:30. Adam, was there anything else on the offensive side of the football that you want to talk about before we wrap up the show? Anything else that crossed your mind with this team?
Yeah, something that relates to both the offense and the defense. You mentioned Emeka Ibuka just a couple minutes ago, and in my mind, Matt, how will the Bucs rookie class be as impactful as recent years? Because
Mhm.
one of the luxuries of drafting so well, having so many talented players, is that the new guys coming in, they don't have like starter roles set for them. Even last year, you saw Graham Barton, he stepped right into the center spot. Tyke
Yeah.
Smith, Jalen McMillan, they had roles early on. How will Emeka Ibuka and the rest of the class really become starters? I mean, David Walker, he's going to be behind Braswell, Reddick, and Diaby. Jacob Parrish, immediately, he might not even be the starter at nickel. Benjamin Morrison, he might be sitting behind Jamel Dean. I mean, there's guys in each spot that are going to kind of, keep them down a little bit. Will they rise up and will they become starters and be as successful as recent years where the Bucs relied on so many draft picks?
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be more of a slow burn with this
Yeah.
draft class, just because there's no open spots, as you mentioned. Like Graham Barton was the day one starter from the second he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Whether the Bucs want to say it out loud or not, everybody knew he was, and everybody else that you mentioned. Ibuka, at best, is third going into
Yeah.
the season. At best, he's third. He's probably more likely fourth, at least to begin the year. David Walker, this big sensation, is going to be behind at least two. At best, he's third as well. The corners, it's probably still Jamel Dean's job until he gets injured. So as far as like year one impact, is it weird to say like Elijah Roberts might be the one that has the biggest impact just because of the rotation that you're going to get from defensive tackles in general? Vita Vea doesn't play 100% of the snaps. Maybe it is Tez Johnson as a
Yeah.
punt returner. Now, long term, and I know that's not really what you address, but long term, this group could have as much of an impact as the 2024 draft class. It just won't look exactly the same. It might even be better. Like, what if David Walker ends up being a better fourth round pick than Bucky Irving? That's insane. That's insane to think of. But if that's a real possibility, the trickle down effect of the long term tenure of Emeka Ibuka eventually being wide receiver one whenever Mike Evans and Chris Godwin decide that they don't want to play football anymore, or maybe that they can't, just based on.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to have as big of an impact this season, but it's a way better insurance policy, and I still think talent-wise, they can be up there with last year's draft class or some of the better draft classes that Jason Light has had in recent years.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the talent. I mean, the talent's there, the high character's there. Like it looks like a Jason Light draft class, but my concern is just where, like in recent years, the Bucs draft class has been in the top 10 in snaps played. You've seen so many starters. I mean, the Bucs last year had 4 starters emerge. Will there
Yeah.
be even 1 or 2 this year? I think that this draft class is going to be like an NBA or MLB draft where you draft guys, but they don't contribute that first
Right.
year, and you're going to see it more long term, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it'll build more storylines, and hey, how do these guys improve the following season? But it's certainly interesting to think about what their impact is on one season. Obviously, the Bucs want it for a very long time, but as far as the immediate, it's definitely something to think about, especially if you're having a meal. Think about the Bucs rookies while you're at walk-ons.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered walk-ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger. Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy. And speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. head straight to walk-ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-ons for the win.
Walk-Ons is the place to be, people. They got happy hour Mondays through Fridays, all at different times, including all day on Tuesdays. That means $5 Tito's, $5 premium house pours, or happy hour wines, $5.49, 22-ounce domestic drafts. Their drinks are great. Their food might even be better. They're all fantastic, like the Boom Boom Shrimp, the Hush Puppies, the boneless wings, and cheeseburger sliders. They are all great. There are 3 walk-ons in the Tampa Bay area, one over in Lakeland, another in Wesley Chapel, and a third in Midtown, pretty close to Raymond James Stadium and not far from where I live as well. So eat like a winner, drink like a champ over at Walk-Ons. So shout out to Walk-Ons. It's getting me hungry, not going to lie. I'm pretty hungry now that I am thinking about Walk-Ons. Another thing I've been thinking about, I wrote about it today as well. Spoke about it briefly on yesterday's Pewter Report podcast. But there is a new award that I think Tristan Wirfs is going to win at some point in his career. But it'd be cool if he won it his first year, or the first year that it is an award. The Protector of the Year award is coming. It's going to the best offensive lineman after the season. I'm sure they'll present it at the NFL honors like they do with all the other awards. But Adam, I think this is really cool that they're finally giving some recognition to offensive linemen, where many a times they're the unsung heroes of the success of the MVPs in the league.
Yeah, they really are the unsung heroes, the forgotten guys in the trenches. I mean, these guys, they set the tone for the rest of the team. And you saw that last year, the Bucs offensive line, they were so successful, made Baker Mayfield's life easier. Bucky Irving, he could run around, do his thing a little bit. But looking at Tristan Wirfs being in his mid-20s, you could really see this become the Tristan Wirfs award, in my opinion, because you look at somebody like as a protector, and there's few that are better than Tristan Wirfs. You could put this man on an island, and he will not only survive, he will thrive. And I think it's great for offensive linemen because they're not guys that they're in the box score. They're putting up statistics and touchdowns. I mean, Tristan Wirfs might occasionally get a football and do a spike, but you're not seeing them make those big plays. It's what they do in between. And so I love this, that they're getting recognition, because so many good offensive linemen, they don't get mentioned.
No, they don't. And that's why I'm curious if this first award, and again, this is going to build Tristan Wirfs' Hall of Fame resume. He's the only player in NFL history to be first-team All-Pro on the right side and the left side. He's been able to succeed at both sides, maybe even better now at left tackle than he was at right tackle. So to add a couple of Protector of the Year awards, but again, to get it in his first year, the first year that this award is present, that adds a little bit more than just, hey, he was a 4-time Protector of the Year. The inaugural Protector of the Year award would be very cool. But I am curious, this first year with the award out, I feel like it's going to be, because here's the thing with the offensive linemen. There are some offensive linemen that are known throughout the league. It's one of those things. It's like, it's tough to get the name recognition and respect. A lot of it's just kind of like word of mouth because there's not all these stats and highlight reel plays and things like that. But once you get in, it's like you're in this like special inner circle of offensive linemen that, for better or for worse, you get all the like Pro Bowl accolades and everything like that. And Tristan Wirfs is certainly in it, but we've seen how it hurt guys like Ali Marpet throughout his career. But Tristan's in there, so there's no worries there. What I do not worry, but like this first year, I could see it going to like Trent Williams because he's going into his 15th season, or
Lane Johnson.
Lane Johnson, I believe, is going into his 13th season. Tristan Wirfs is going into year 5 or year 6. I don't want the Protector of the Year award to be this like lifetime achievement award that they always give it to an older veteran that probably should have got it like years and years before, like when Leo finally won an Oscar for The Revenant, but he should have won it for, 3 or 4 other movies. I could see that being the case in like the first year, but then over time, it's like, all right, this guy's legit. Let's give him the trophy.
Yeah, I can see that. And I also hope it goes to other players besides tackle. I mean, obviously Tristan Wirfs deserves recognition, but what if Graham Barton becomes a Pro Bowl player, or Cody Mauch? Like, you want to kind of see interior offensive linemen get love too.
That's true.
I think it'll just be the tackle position, but you have Tristan Wirfs, and he's in that group of the 4 elite tackles. We mentioned 3 of them. Penei Sewell will probably compete with them too, but it's fun. And at the end of the day, it's great that they'll be at the NFL honors, get to rock a big suit. And it'd be funny if like Tristan and Baker were there and you just Tristan as like the big bodyguard.
Well, hopefully they're not there because they're preparing for the Super Bowl. But regardless, we'll see. I think I'd be shocked if Tristan doesn't win one in his career. Before we wrap up the show, let's get to a couple of comments. Sean Wallace says, Baker's going on a historical rip this year. He has so many weapons, and this is basically his second year under the same offensive coordinator coaching. Yeah, that is kind of true. Rolf Steinbauer says, pressure is really on Baker this year. It's do or die, baby. If he has a great year, Adam, could be looking at another extension.
Yeah, he's going to be getting paid too. If Brock Purdy's making what he's making, you're going to see Baker making quite a bit of it.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's that Brock contract. Steven Stansfield says, NFC Championship appearance, going back to our predictions for how far this team can go or what their ceiling could be. Flash Gordon says, there's plenty of trap games this year. The Seahawks, the Bills. I don't think the Bills are a trap game. I think that's this is one of the best teams. Yeah, this is one of the best teams on the schedule this year.
The Seahawks definitely away too.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, for sure. Going all the way out west there, I think is a big difference. Cardinals, like I mentioned. Patriots, like I mentioned. 49ers, too. I don't think they're going to be as bad as everyone thinks. There's one. Let's check the schedule again real quick. There's one other that I had in mind. Let's see. 49ers, Cardinals. Yeah, Miami too. Could go one of two ways. So we'll see there. Last comment, Rolf Steinbauer with another one says, good show, Matt and Adam. Thank you very much for the kind words. It has been a good show. We're going to have another show tomorrow, but that's for Pewter Platinum and Premier members. That will be Bucs Wide Receiver Corps is the envy of the NFL. So that'll be the Pewter Insider tomorrow at 1:30. One more reminder, no show on Monday for Memorial Day. Then we have an OTA recap on Tuesday, and then Jason Light joining the show on Wednesday. So no show on Monday. Please, everybody, take some time to think about those that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country as we get the day off. And then 2 shows on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll have one on Thursday as well. So if you're not already doing so, in the meantime, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video as well. We're getting close to 19,000 subscribers, so please subscribe and get us to that 19 number. Everybody have a great weekend. Be safe. Have a great Memorial Day. Again, take some time to think about those that have fought for us. That'll do it for us on today's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.